Phillip Bannowsky is a former Chrysler worker and retired University of Delaware professor. As a longtime activist, Phillip will tell a story about an incident involving the ROTC at the University of Delaware back in the days of the draft in the Vietnam War.
That was it, wasn't it? Performance. There he is.
Back when the Vietnam War was raging and rebellion was in the air, I'd always thought I could just be a soldier in the revolution. Who needs generals? The clear light of historical necessity would just shine through our proletarian brains and make the rough places of our differences plain. History might need a nudge now and then, but I wouldn't really have to stick my neck out. The way me and Harley Weiner nudged 1,000 students onto the ROTC building at the University of Delaware in 1970. I guess the story can now be told. I picked up a couple of degrees there since, and hell, I've taught there for 15 years. I guess they won't take them back. Anyway, after I dropped out of college in '65 and before I wandered into Chrysler, where I ended up working for 31 years, I spent some time as a non-student agitator, hanging around with SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. Actually, by the time this ROTC action occurred, SDS was in shambles. And I had begun working in the auto plant, but I was laid off. Back at the UD, and nationally for that matter, the momentum was building against compulsory participation in the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, ROTC. Quite without the aid of any SDS vanguard, the students had shut the university down after the invasion of Cambodia and the killings of 6 students at Jackson State and Kent State. Harley used to work at Chrysler too, and like me was an SDS alumnus. He and I were feeling like poor boys ruined in the house of the rising factions, but the big May Day actions in DC had rekindled that old-time religion. Anyway, back in '70, I was at home, doing the laid-off auto worker thing on that warm eve of the merry month, drinking beer and dreaming poetry on the porch of a duplex by the track so close that roaring by trains would rattle the light switches off and on. My wife and toddler son Gabe were in the house. Ivan was tomorrow's child, and she came out to tell me that Harley was on the phone. Comrade! The students are occupying the student center and they're planning on marching on the ROTC building. Zip! Holy shit! The big L-shaped hallway at the UD Student Center and lounge area at the Bend was totally jammed with students. Big-booted, blue-jean, bearded, and braless, souring the close air with camel smoke, sweat, and a whiff of boo, and not a leader to be found at either end or bend where Harley and I went hunting to find out where we were supposed to march. Everyone was asking, do you know when we're supposed to go? And then someone asked me, is it true we're supposed to go at 8 o'clock? Where'd you hear that? Someone said it. There's the final conflict. Let it stand in his place. Look, comrade, I said to Harley, there's Frank Kalinowski. Now, Kalinowski had never been one of us, but I'd always had a lot of respect for him. He and I had taken compulsory ROTC together, and he'd always challenged the military instructors when they'd asserted, say, that nuclear weapons aren't really so terrible. After all, the crossbow was once considered the ultimate weapon, and it wasn't, was it? And now he was a poli-sci professor, and such an anarchist that he was opposed, he told me once, to the cultivation of corn. He should know what was going on. Hey, Frank, do you know when we're supposed to leave for the ROTC building? That would be the worst thing we could do. So, Harley and I drifted off into the confusion where we could huddle unheard, and in 10 minutes we'd worked our way from one end of that L to the other. Hey, I hear everyone's leaving now, and hey, it's half the folks have already left, and before you knew it, folks were telling us, it's time to go, and there's hundreds of folks at the ROTC building already, waiting for everyone else. And you know what? There were. After the mass built up momentum, Harley and I hurried out to the front, scurrying past a vast phalanx stretching across town. At the ROTC building were lights and a mic, and some ROTC cadet was haranguing the crowd. I'm going to Vietnam to die for you. The next speaker condemned that cadet for turning in his own girlfriend to the cops for smoking pot. Speaker after speaker condemned to the cheers of thousands echoing in the balmy air off the ancient ivy brick, the war, the military, and ROTC, speaking from the heart. without any correction by vanguards or ideologues, not to mention a couple of anonymous nutzers. Bannowsky sidled up to Harley and me where we stood beneath this big American elm. I hear the FBI is over there saying they're looking for Weiner and Bannowsky. We took the hint at face value and split, but now I wonder. Anyway, we won. After all the radicalism settled down, compulsory ROTC was abolished out of the goodness of the enlightened Board of Trustees' hearts, I suppose. There's more to the story, but you'll have to read Autoplant to find out what happens next. Thank you.